No man dare put a son down on what Father God bless you done. No. Whoa,
Welcome back, TNT 1017 in the nation's capital as we're inside the second hour of the Human Impact on Freedom 106.5 FM. As you know, we are talking about the role of unions in TNT, the role of representation, and the question or the call by the communication workers boss to put political loyalties aside in workers' interests. And I think this is coming from the recent announcement that 150 call center employees will receive 30-day terminations, or they have received 30-day termination notices. Not only these 150 workers, other workers who have within the last 14 to 16 months receive some sort of termination, loss of job, not sure where they are, in limbo and so on. The call for unions to leave political affiliations aside. What say you? Hello, good morning.
Hi, just like morning.
Yes, good morning once again.
Just so when I call you, I did not cut off the call. It was accidentally. So to say that I would have realized that my statement was in error, and I detached the call is wrong.
All right. So you want to repeat what it is you said so that we can address what you said?
I said that it is not the first time that unions have aligned themselves with political parties, right, with an interest of bringing or voting, getting in the government in office out. And we have seen it in the past, and it continues to prevail, right?
And at that point, I asked you to give concrete evidence of unions specifically joining government to undermine, or to use your words, bring down the splitting the government.
Well, you can go back to listen to the addresses by the unions on the campaign trail, and you can assess from that for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And understanding that the unions have joined together to assist this current government.
Right. So the point I'm making, look, for instance, in 2010 to 2015, we had the MSG forming government, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have heard, if you listen to the language of the union leaders, they were intent on bringing the government out of office. When you listen to Roger and them. When you listen to in 2015, again, it was geared towards bringing the government out of office. Now, the thing is, whether we accept it is a bad thing or a good thing, that is a matter of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But when a union is negotiating for their members and they feel that the government is a stumbling block, obviously they will go at the jugular for the government using, of course, the strength of their membership.
What exactly can you refer to, or what statement exactly can you refer to as undermining statement of the government?
I wouldn't say undermining. You are saying undermining.
All right, to quote unquote,
I am saying that
to bring down the government, to use your words.
They are citizens of this country, and as a union leader, they would have gone on platform, demonstrated their support for the opposition, and they would have stated, like for instance, I remember Rosie had made a statement that the PNM government is not good for this country. I'm just paraphrasing, and they have to leave. Right? Now, the thing is that we can assess and all listen to the words that was used and come to our own conclusion that whether it is wrong or right, the unions, if they feel that the government is a stumbling block, they are within their right if they want to stand in opposition to that union and use the United force to bring that government down because they are stumbling block to
I mean,
Breathe.
these words that you're using, stumbling block and all of that, that's like general words that we've heard from almost every single representative that has come in an election campaign fever space to say, well, at this point in time, we're not getting the representation that we need, so X government needs to go. It's not, so that is general talk. That does not necessarily mean that there is a specific purpose for the unions to quote unquote bring down the government, which can be loosely interpreted as anarchist.
No, not anarchist. We
But
are talking
okay,
about-
so
you are using words that I'm not using. I'm
I
saying
am giving the general feeling because the initial feeling that
No, we are
was
talking about
given when you gave the statement at first did not sound like the union was willing to work with government because what's the name of the coalition that is currently with the current administration, stating that the coalition of interests was the name of it, right?
Yeah.
And their purpose, or what they put on the platform, was to represent workers, make light of the many negotiations that were outstanding, and also advocate for workers' rights, not so?
correct.
And at that point in time, they were in disagreement with the administration, which was the PNM. All right. So how is it different now that these representatives, Ms. Ogier and others who are calling for the delivery of promised negotiations or completed negotiations, any different from the coalition of interests when the election campaign started? I would like to know the difference.
When you say the difference, what you mean? Is it that you're saying that the unions has a role to play, even if the union played a role during the election, right, to support a political party per se, which is their right as a democratic right, a constitutional right, to support a political party. If in supporting this political party, they were victorious in their support of this party gets in the government, it may not be because of their support, but they have supported this party for government, right? It does not say that because the government is in power, that the purpose of the union must be compromised enough.
What I'm trying to understand is that the language that you have put forward here in this season, it seems that the current union leaders, be it Ms. Joanne Ogier, Ms. Felicia Thomas, and others who are representing workers at this point in time, using the same terminology and language as the coalition of interests, because it was not in agreement with the administration at the time, stating that they were not in the best interest of workers. It seems that negotiations were at a standstill and were not able to move forward. Now they're asking for the current administration to finish negotiations, deliver on concluded negotiations, and yet it seems that they are, to use your words, looking to bring down the government or
I understand what you are saying.
So, all right. So
That's
it's
not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they are looking to bring down the government. What I am saying, I'm speaking about during the election campaign here. I'm saying that during the election campaign or leading up to the election, right, unions has taken a position in the past, right, and that would not change. It has not changed. They have taken a position in the past. I'm not saying that now that they are more or less advocating for the best interest of their members, and it is the very same government that they support that they are trying to bring down. That is not what I'm saying.
However, it seems that the issues that they had with the last administration seem to prevail with this administration, and now the leaders are different in that we have Ms. Ogier and Ms. Thomas being the representatives that have come forward so far to announce their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their worries. It's the same language. This is what I'm trying to get to you. It's the same language.
it's nothing new, but it's not. I will not say it is with an intent to bring down the administration.
However, that's not what you're saying. All right. Okay.
Not what I'm saying.
All right.
I'm saying simply that is their role. And whether or not they support our government or not, their role is to represent the best interests of their members. And that is what they are doing. Nothing is wrong with that.
Okay, so it's nothing is wrong with how they are representing. However, in the beginning, you were saying that the language that they were using seemed to have the overtone.
I'm speaking about during the election. I'm trying to keep it within context here.
Right, the election that just passed.
Election, it was clear that in the past election, anytime a union aligned themselves with a political party in the opposition, right, their aim is to get the government out of office because they see the government in office at the point in time as a stumbling block, and they feel that they'll have a better opportunity or chance to really negotiate for the best interest with the opposition at the time. That is all I'm saying. I say that has not changed. However, if you are speaking about now in the fact that they are advocating for workers' rights and better conditions of work for workers, even though it's a government that support, nothing is wrong with that because that is the role of a union. That is all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you so much for your call.
You're welcome.
625-2257, 627-3223 is the number. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Morning, Jessica. How are you?
Great, Port of Spain. How are you doing?
Your grace, I go fine. And morning to all listeners. Okay. I am a strong trade unionist. I believe in trade unionism, right? I started on the first day, I joined the trade union. And I confirm trade unionist. I believe in trade union organization. Now, the trade union, the leaders have their job to do. Okay? They have their job to do. The minister has his job to do. But remember, without workers, you are going nowhere. I remember Mr. Ford, Henry Ford was asking his workers, pay you. They say, you, sir. He said, no, I don't pay you. Those customers pay you. So the workers are very important. And I'm urging the government to transact business with them. I wouldn't use the word deal with them. I wouldn't use that word. I nearly hear that word. To transact business with them. But this government is not telling people the truth, what we owe and what we own. That's the point. This government is not, that $5 billion we have as reserves was money the PNM borrowed and put there. Because the central bank governor said from a year, nothing has been added to that $5 billion reserves.
All right. So in your contribution to the topic at hand with unions removing political loyalties, what does that have to play or what role does that have to play with your contribution this morning to this specific question?
Not emphasizing see what the union puts on the government after. I made a pronouncement that 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, 21, 25. We owe him the 20, 14, 15, 16, that we still owe workers on that. Some the workers in the port say they're working on 2014 salaries. What were they doing between 2014 and 2024? What were they doing? I believe in getting my money up front, Jessica. I don't know which years because your money, every time your money is losing value because of inflation and otherwise, right? I believe in currency of negotiation. But so we have a lot of catching up to do. And that is the money owed to, I talk about unions being engaged by the government, workers engaged by the government, right? So we owing them all back way, we owing them billions, you know. We owing them billions. And you have to factor that in. Now, what I'm saying is, I support the trade union movement, all right? Right. They have their job to do. Do your job. But now, I've never seen this aggression, almost belligerence, right? In the trade union movement. But that's their business. The government has to meet them and treat with them and explain to them. The union are understanding people. They are understanding people, understand what's going on. But come up front and tell us. Don't hide. Tell us the true financial situation.
Is it that with the announcement of the true financial situation, to your knowledge, would somehow stop the unions from negotiating back pay and better wages for workers?
Put a little pause on it.
Why should they put a pause on it?
Because where's the money coming from? But they're entitled. I say, just that they're entitled.
Is it all right? Well, here's a suggestion then, based on your information and the reasoning that you're giving, that there is such an exorbitant debt. Then maybe the persons in higher positions, be it our ministers and other representatives of that grouping, should reduce their salaries too.
Well, yes, I agree with that.
I'm asking just a suggestion because you're needing to find other revenue, not so.
You are the leader, so you set the example. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and maybe that could help out in the national debt and or pay workers.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So your leadership will set the example. We are now in this. We are now in lean times, Jessica. Lean times.
But why it is the people who have been on the lean for the longest time and tightening their belts for the longest time still have to be not what's the word I'm looking for? Requested to further foot the bill in that regard.
Look, our leaders have to set the example and show us how you're spending your money, Jessica. Show us how you're spending your money. They're not showing us, Jessica, they're not accounting for how to spend the money. Okay, let me give an example. Listen, please, I beg, right? We had the terrestrial housing, right? That was a mere failure. So, that people fella get the contract for the terrestrial building there. You're telling me now AGC must have the engineers. Now the contractor had his engineers doing the work. Where were the AGC engineers not on there examining your work and inspecting it? The whole situation, you spend that money and the whole thing crash. Where were the AGC engineers, Tesca, to do some examination? Because Tesca, there's a thing called contract administration. Trusted, they're building buildings. So I work with my contract. I say, wait a minute, you're using inferior steel. You're not using the correct amount of tea. You're right. So you're shortcutting the method. HTC engineers were there to protect the public interest. Where were they?
I am just saying, Port of Spain, thanks so much for your call. I am just trying to focus in the statement by Joanne O'Gare that unions need to put political loyalties aside. I understand why you're bringing up these points, Port of Spain, because in a sense, and I think it's something that you've been doing with other topics that we bring up as well. You want to know what the final debt is, the overall debt that the country has, which is all, by all means, something that we need to know. And we get that with the Information Act, where you can get that information if it is you so request it. It almost, and I sometimes I let it pass, but I think I want to ask you this next time you call. Are you saying that the working class, the workers who are represented by several unions, need to once again foot the bill for the debt and not expect back pay that you yourself will be referring to has been owed to them since when? 2013? 2012? I think you even mentioned 2012. So what exactly are you requesting from the working class of the country yet again? And then on top of that, upset when the unions have used or begin to use language that brings them off as quote unquote arrogant and aggressive. Because when you're talking about back pay, what's the word I'm looking for? Not privileges, but the additional allowances. And then there is the increase in standard of living. All of these things are applied to the final figure for the quote unquote back pay. You're telling them to hold on. If you're minus 2015 from 2026, how many years that is people waiting? And yet you're telling them to wait again? Because we have nothing to do with that. We are not the accounts managers of the Treasury. That is why we elected officials to do that part. So qualified persons to handle that. Why I had to stop eat, certain good stuff because I had to, foot your bill. That don't make no sense. Question, Tusker. Should the government feel obligated to grant all public servants an increase every year? This goes to the perpetual state of government playing catch up with the back pay, COLA, pension, and salary increases. I'm saying no. I can't believe I'm actually quoting Eric. But Eric made a valid submission in the morning show. Are government workers entitled to the biggest slice of every cake the government bakes? And the rest of the country must make do with the cake that is left after? I'm saying no. Hello, good morning.
I'm Monoduska.
Good morning.
Trinity.
Hey,
I'm always listening, but just like to hear other views and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you pay money for 9 years. Had they given anybody any increase in salary? Did they get any back pay within that 9 years? How much every other
to the workers or to themselves?
Not to themselves, to the workers.
Okay.
Okay, every government does have to pay off debts and all of that from the previous government who would dare
right.
take office. So there's a lot being done, and according to what everybody is saying, Eric says the government doesn't have the money. And he's saying that based on the Revenue Authority, they should have bring into place and the property tax and all that, they could create revenue from all of that. Now, I don't know, I am not know what to say. I'm not in that area, in that field to say much about that. But what I can say really is that I think life right now for Trinbagonians under this government is plenty more better than what we had for the last 9 years. Fact is, you can't get everything. There's not a magic one, you could wave it and get everything done. But time will tell everything. I believe, Tusker, mark my word what I'm telling you today.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this government is going to get an oil boom. Mark my words. It's just a matter of time. It may not be now, but before this 5 years, I'm sure about that. I know what I'm seeing.
All right. Thank you so much for your call. I would like to see an oil boom too. That means that, workers will get their pay and so on. However, it has been drilled into our brains that the administrations of the day took advantage of those booms. So I don't know. I don't know. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Oscar,
Hi.
I am a unionist, and the workers in this country has been very, very patient. And
I've been very what?
Patient. I think workers in this country, we have not had the kind of industrial uprising and we see in other countries. We have not seen the kind of protest and industrial actions. And look at how long workers have been back pay and I think has been outstanding. You're going into new collective bargaining period, and yet there are outstanding periods for payment. How do you expect workers to respond to employers when it is that they cannot even meet some of them on the daily needs? This is something that requires urgent, critical address, because the day workers decide, the day some of these essential services decide to shut down country, then we will find all cause to see who to blame, where it originated from, where it started from, where's the genesis of it, all right? In the first place, you said something there earlier, just now there, about the oil boom, right? There has been a total abuse by administrations during that period. Abuse. We're not supposed to be in a position today where workers are in 2026 still on 2012 salary and all these kind of things. So Tosca, that is crazy. That how are workers to respond to this? How are union leaders to respond to this? It matters not who in government, because the administration that is in government is the administration that is going to feel the pinch of the labor movement if it is that they reach their threshold limit that they cannot take anymore.
Also, remember that this administrative government was the government in opposition when these issues were being highlighted as well. So I'm trying to figure out exactly why is it there was the delay in the first place? Is it that it was a series of governments gaslighting workers and the rest of the country as to the true state of how the economy was really going?
Yeah, well, the thing is that we have seen where there has been a more or less agreement between the unions and the incoming government at the time to settle wages and these things. You know, the fact is that there was no time frame given. Can you recall any time frame given during that period, during the election period, when we are saying all this about the 10%?
I'm not even sure if anyone can give a time frame deadline on these things. And even if it was given, who we expecting to adhere to these things?
Exactly. So my point is that if our government says that they are going to pay this or going to pay that, they didn't say in the first year, the second year, the third year. But because there is a desperation by the workers, and rightfully so, by the working class, right? They want the thing now, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a way in which parties need now to go before the table and iron out these issues before this reach to a catastrophic state. And we cannot get waters in our pipe. At night, we have to use flambeau.
Flambeau. I mean, I don't know if you're foreshadowing, but thanks so much for your call, right? However, I mean, as much as I make light of that, these things do happen in countries where workers, groups of people, etc., want their current administrations to pay attention to their cries for assistance. I'm not saying that it will happen here. However, I will repeat that these are some of the tactics and or scenarios that have occurred in countries where they would like their administrations to take heed of their concerns. We've also seen in history where lack of attention and lack of foresight, planning, and also heeding to calls from junior workers, the workforce, people in these positions, the working class, does not augur well for administrations when they return to the hustings. Just keep that in mind as well. All right, 625-2257, 627-3223. One person says here, the true financial situation of our country is simply we have no money. We have no revenue generation system in place. In short, let's hope we get Venezuela's gas to survive. Wasn't there some foreshadowing and discussion about diversification? Because it would not be in our best interest to look at that golden egg in that basket. It would have been better to have a few more eggs or even a few more nests or a few more. Anyway, 625-2257, 627-3223. Hello, good morning.
Good morning again, Tosca. Just
morning.
Sure.
Sure.
I want to make a point there a while ago. You have to blame other previous administration for all that is happening now. And one thing I want to touch on really, when one government was there for 30 consecutive years, that's not 30 months. This is 30 consecutive years, right? With two blazing oil boom, with monies that we had up to now we can be inheriting. The people now can be inheriting that money to pay public servants and otherwise and run the country with proper health care and all these things. I mean, we don't have an oil boom right now. Fact is, you're closing a place that was we was doing the own oil business, the Petrotrain and all these things like that, you know what I mean? And you close down all of that, right? That was bringing revenue. All you need to do is restructure it, get rid of some of the workers if you have to pay them off for something, whatever you had to do to make the company viable. But the fact is that everything you're checking out, carrying everything, we can produce our own sugar. We had the best sugar, one of the best sugar we have to find the people. Remember, everything they seem to just close down, right? And this is what, if you have something that creating revenue and generating revenue in a country, and you close down these things, something wrong with we. It's a banana producing country in the Caribbean here, and they're doing better than us right now. You understand? But just we just have to hope and see, because I tell you, the future generation, they are the ones to catch it. Enjoy all the day.
Thank you so much for your call. Now, I could be controversial and add or give or remind our listeners from both sides of the political spectrum that remember that the global economic climate, no one was expecting. If few knew it was coming, it's because all they had real insider information as to what was coming. So the industries have changed, not only because of major developments or introduction of newer industries, the failing of other industries, be it from, what's the term that the analysts on Wall Street and so on have used, bubble financing, all of these different things that have contributed to the decline, and not only the decline in businesses, but trust in these industries, and seeing a drastic drop in investment, people pulling investment and so on. And as I say, the natural flow of new investors or ideas and so on, you actually see it peak and then the obvious drop would have come. Some predicted it, people didn't listen, and the industries are now grappling with people asking for, where are my dividends? Where are my returns? How did my investment not return to me? And there are other industries that was putting up their hand and saying, yo, take a look at us, and has built on its own a kind of homegrown base, and they are tightly holding on to their development because they've seen the ruthless way in which these quote-unquote bigger investors, in their eyes, have destroyed the feeling of their own industries and companies, and don't want the quote-unquote outside influence to destroy their models. So how do we acknowledge and also look at the current state of the economic development globally to know what to invest in? Because if it is that, someone say here, the Venezuelan oil, if that doesn't work out for us, because remember that we had our own issues or relations with Venezuela that still even though on paper or in the public, it seems like they are right, it still has that underlying tone of, you may not get it as good as you thought you would have had with the Venezuelan oil. What if that doesn't come through? Do we have other alternatives? What are we going to do to have the economy going? The current economic situation and civil unrest around the world plays a big part. And then here's the next one. Climate change has also affected the delivery and also the workforce needed to deliver on these things. So buildings gone through Colombia, Venezuela, Japan, Indonesia, all of these spaces that not only provided probably machinery and also intellect, the qualified persons to be in these industries. You have the infrastructure and manufacturers trying to fix up their own country. And the last count for Colombia's damage was about 1 point something billion. You really think they're gonna be looking outside to come to Trinidad and Tobago and other countries outside to invest in them? And have other people come into their country to work, for example, Venezuela, to work and get the gas lines going? They prefer to give their own people because economically it makes sense. What are we going to do? Anyway, let me take in this voice note before we switch hours here on Freedom 106.5 FM. Good morning and welcome.
After this contribution by this caller here, I am sure either Rowley Jr. or Eric come in to explain and justify the spending or the investing, as they will put it, of the monies that come through the oil boom at a time when the country was at this and at that. You hear them, watch and see. Hear one of them come in to justify that wanton abuse of the monies that was generated from the oil boom by the PNM for 30 years.
What is your contribution? 625-2257, 627-3223. Hello, good morning. 625-2257, 627-3223. Hello, good morning. Uh-huh.
To ask a question.
Sure.
2014, 2015, 2016.
Right there
Where are the
advocating.
unions?
They were right there advocating and telling people
What are doing the stuff?
they were protesting. You remember? They were on the streets and they did not Labor Day, the marches and so on.
Let me continue it. Honestly, they could have been aggressive and belligerent. But they were not.
No. I'm not going to advocate for that. But the governments of the day did not take them on either.
Have sold us out. Because they had to initiate the discussion, not the government. They had to do it. Initiate the discussion and show us. So why for all these years the union is to do that? The fact the union leaders live a nice life, they lead an opulent life. They enjoy the cream. They enjoy a Dolce Vita.
So wait, hold on. Let me get this clear from you, Port Spain. You are saying that union leaders sold out on the people who they represented?
They're on the street, but they're not doing that.
We under SOE, Port Spain. How are they doing that?
They could go and come from where?
Oh.
But do that. But what I'm saying is the union leaders have an up.
Oh.
I know that. I know. I support them. I support them. Thank you. But what I want to say, thank you, Port Spain.
Thank you so much, Port Spain. Persons who are in unions at the moment, is what Port Spain said correct? Do you think that your union leader living nice? Do you think that they didn't advocate for you? Do you think that they were in hibernation? Give me a call. 625-2257, 627-3223 is the number. 4 minutes to go to 11 o'clock. At 11:15, we have Mind Matters. What's the topic for today? You'll find out in the next one. Stay tuned.
Tune in to Betterments with host Space, Monday through Thursday, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. for a program that educates and is solution-based. Space tackles the issues that matter to you, providing a platform to speak your mind and find solutions. That's Betterments with Base, with a focus on education and resolution. This is all about making things better for you. You can reach us via phone and WhatsApp to share your thoughts and find solutions to the issues that matter to you. So if you want to make a difference and have your voice heard, tune into Freedom 106.5 FM and join us for Betterments with Base, Monday through Thursday from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Better for you. Only on Freedom 106.5 FM, where we believe that your voice matters.
Get fast, get ready for the biggest party in sport. The Trinbago Knight Riders are back in action in the 2026 Republic Bank CPL T20. CNC3 is bringing you every TKR match live. Feel the excitement.
That is the biggest six of the day.
And watch every six, every wicket, and every game-changing moment. Watch all Trinbago Knight Riders matches along with the Eliminator qualifiers and the final matches live on CNC3 television and CNC3live.com. Check out CNC3 social media for all match schedules. Support your Trinbago Knight Riders in the battle for CPL glory.
When TKR hit the six, when TKR take a wicket.
You can also enjoy the Republic Bank CPL T20 Premier League matches via a secondary broadcast the next day at 1 p.m. only on CNC3. Cricket lives here.
No one ever can understand it. The way the system planned, there's no hope, no chance, no loophole, no escape for a sufferer man. Cause every time I lift my head above water, I try to save myself from drown. There's an overnight scheme all worked out, designed to keep me down. Still I'm putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. You know I'm putting up a resistance. I've got to work it out. Blow and blow. I want to stay home tonight. I long to spend some time with the family, but staying home won't make it right. Sometimes the pressure makes me feel like Paula, when every sign says no way out. Breaking my back to make an overtime dollar. That just goes from man to mouth. Still I'm putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. You know I'm putting up a resistance. I've got to work it out. Lord, I'm putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. You know I'm putting up resistance. I'm gonna work it out, Lord. Oh, I never can understand it, the way the system goes. I don't know how they do it. It's only one way things flow. Cause every time I lift my head above water, I gotta save myself from drown. There's an overnight scheme all worked out, designed to keep me down. Still I'm putting up a resistance. I've got to work it out. You know I'm putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. Whoa, I'm putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. Putting up a resistance. I'm gonna work it out. Wanna stay home tonight. Like to spend some time with my family. Staying home won't make it right. Sometimes the pressure makes me feel like harder. And every sign says no way out. Breaking my back to make a note on that dollar that goes from man to mouth. Still I'm putting up a resistance.
This is Freedom 106.5 FM, 106.5 FM. your solution for current affairs and talk. Join the conversation today as we build a better nation. Insightful discussions and interviews on national progress, the latest developments in environmental, social, and governance, plus corporate social responsibility. Freedom 106.5 FM gives you a voice. Freedom to inspire, freedom to change. Speak your mind with Freedom 106.5 FM. This is the Human Impact on Freedom 106.5 FM. Speak your mind.
Welcome to the third hour right here inside the Human Impact on Freedom 106.5 FM as we talk about the role of unions. The union leader of the Communication Workers Union has called for other union leaders to put political affiliations aside to better represent the workers of the day. Now, we just have to understand or to remember the roles of unions before the how to put it, tentative hot and cold relationship that the unions currently have with government. All right? Your comments and, of course, your calls. Hello, good morning, good morning. Good morning.
Right, Tosca, good morning again.
Uh-huh.
Tosca, listen to Port of Spain, and because of Port of Spain's experience, age, and appreciation for the history of the labor movement, I can understand why he's speaking like this, because during the Butler era is a different dimension, a different time.
Mm-hmm.
During that era, there were no formal system in place for them to meet around the table to negotiate for working class and this kind of thing. And somebody were prohibited. So they had to go on the streets and advocate and march against prohibitive laws and legislations and things.
They actually had to create what labor laws look like.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
They were the advocates. They were the proponents. They changed the labor movement, the face of the labor movement, right? And you had that solidarity there,
mm-hmm.
right? Because not just the working class would have come out and march, but you had the housewives, you had the children, you had the grandfathers. Everybody would have come out in the road, in the streets and march,
mm-hmm.
right? Now, what he is saying there is something different. Today now, unions have that privilege to meet with employers to negotiate terms and conditions of employment for the workers, right? That was fought for. Now, until that is broken down, where there is no room for further negotiation, either party not willing to go further,
mm-hmm.
right? There's a process still to take it to file a dispute with the Ministry of Labor, then to the Industrial Court. And they also has a privilege or a right to go in the street and march. But it don't happen just so. You have to get permission to
mm-hmm.
do that as well.
Oh, so what you're trying to say basically is that the opportunity for the venting of real anger has been removed from what labor looks like.
That's right. And
do you think that Port of Spain is suggesting that a healthy dose of anger within a controlled environment that has been established for the unions should be expressed at this point in time?
Well, you see, it's not something that you can just, as a first instance, in other words. It's not your first option. It's not your immediate option. As I said,
right? I think they've been going through a lot of options, and it's fast approaching to that option, is it not?
Procedurally, and then you'll find that they will take to the street. But the thing is, here's my concern with today. What I will support Port of Spain on.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lack. And I've said that not only here, but I've said it within union circles too. There's a lack of union solidarity, much like what we used to see before.
Mm-hmm.
Union solidarity is at a minimum now. Let me explain. If we have the PSA is protesting for their working class, the other unions are quiet. It was never like that. There was always a union solidarity, that they share a common interest. If one is affected, all is affected. All right?
Mm-hmm.
seeing that kind of thing, and I think that is what, because the union is fragmented in that sense, we have seen it in the past with PSC taking their own, and we have seen it under this Duke and these guys and them.
I think
within the labor movement that is causing the weakness that governments that more or less have a propensity to be dictatorial can exploit that. Right? And we have seen it. They will exploit that because the backbone of the union, which is collectivism, is more or less on a minimal note. And the union movement needs to understand for the labor force, which your currency, because the capital, the employer has the capital, financial capital, but your currency is really the strength, the united strength of the labor movement coming together as one in a collectivism. There's no room for individualism in unionism, right? And what we are seeing today, the face of the union is changing in that we have seen too much of fragmentation within the union itself, amongst union leaders themselves. And that is the big problem. The problem is not the government, and the problem is that the fragmentation is killing the labor movement right now. And union leaders need to come together as one, have one head and one common interest, because the common interest there is the betterment of your members, the working class, full stop. And in so doing, it will augur well for whichever country, whether it be Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, it augurs well for the nation as a whole.
Thank you.
Have a good day. God bless.
Thank you so much for your call. Now, I know the direction or the introduction of that part of the conversation. I thank you so much for that, because there is a definition for it and a paper that was done on it. A presentation by Dave Smith, president of the National Workers Union, was made at the opening session of a training program organized by the Transport and Industrial Workers Union at Cipriani Labor College. And this was in 2021. He did state, and the headline of his presentation is Trade Unions and the Class Struggle. So if an acknowledgement of that is also brought to the table, because when you look at the struggles of each union, they were asking for different things. And a comparison was made that separated oil and sugar workers in the beginning, and then it evolved to the quote-unquote, I can't say it without referring to the utility at that point, but one utility against the other, meaning that their pay was better than the other. And that was the basis of the distance and the infighting that you see in the union. So I thank you for bringing that up. From what he has described in the article, I'll just read it as I see it. It would be tempting to simply emphasize the importance of training, and of course that would be true. However, it is also important to put into context the significance of training in the development of any trade union. Trade unions are the most important organization for workers. They represent not only the ability of workers to defend their interests, but equally as important, enable unions through collective bargaining to try and improve their standard of living and extract from the employing class an improved share of the wealth created by labor. The modern trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago can trace its roots back to the labor uprisings of 1937. But as Karl Marx pointed in the sum of his early writings in 1848, the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Taking this longer-term historical view, it helps is to know where we've come from and where we should be going. For instance, we can recognize the importance of the strike of the waterfront workers in 1919 and some of the early efforts of workers to organize after the abolition of slavery in 1838. We can take an even longer perspective, and history has given us evidence of attempts to form some of the earliest trade unions in Britain in the 1820s as workers respond to the exploitation of capitalism as a result of the Industrial Revolution in the 1750s. Now, I can't read all of it. I'll read the next part when I can. At 11:15, we go into Mind Matters. But all of these little things, and when I say the word little, I mean it's like different components that come together to understand what the unions represent in terms of labor in Trinidad and Tobago and what the relationship should look like or used to look like back then and what it should look like now in quote unquote modern times. Have the unions drifted away from their purpose? Do they need to come back to the roots of understanding why the unions exist in its first place? And in a time that kind of hinders how or what protest looks like at this point in time, how do they voice their concerns and still keep the job? Because that's the thing that they hang over the heads of workers. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be jobless. At the end of the day, you're thinking about your family. You're thinking about putting food on the table. Isn't it illegal in some instances to do that? To make you not express your dissatisfaction with working conditions and or wages and or all of the concerns that are being put forward by the PSA, the CWU, and all other representatives at this point in time? What say you? I got 1 more minute to go before we step into Mind Matters. Hello, good morning.
Tosca, I when people make a contribution and they preempt whether or not what is coming forth, it has to be based on either fear or the facts. My thing is that if we deal with modern time relation to the union, now the union displacement has there's an impact on that with respect to displacement of companies. The steel company is no longer there. It displaced the steelworkers union. Before Petrotrin, even the UWTU displacement, in fact, all Trinidad Sugar, when the sugar came down, they joined the UNC. So displacement have been going on a long time. And when they displaced, because to me, they didn't save good. I made 2 chants to Rudy Indar sing on a program. I said, well, listen, Carney closed down. How come only never tried to buy it? And then he bubbled his way into something. And when you look at fast tracking to heritage, when UWTU formed that company, Dr. Roy, they put the refinery in the market. They couldn't buy it either. So their thing is to join governments. So this is going on a long time. But the level of hypocrisy I'm hearing here today, Tosca, in relation to some of the callers, telling us that the unions are supposed to fight together. The unions displaced. The unions are now currently, we're talking about this time, OWTU is within the UNC, PSA is within the UNC, and they have different section of workers they're fighting for. So how could they be amalgamated? To do what purpose then? OWTU is quiet because PSA have to struggle on their own. So my thing is, joining political parties cause a great degree of displacement. Displacement among the union, problem for the workers. And Tosca, the people might not like your contribution, but they can't really. My thing is, the UNC have never left a legacy except under Mr. Pandey for resolving salary issues. The UNC's resolved what they paid out in 2010, Mr. Manning's decision on salary increases. When the UNC came together and agreed for salary increases up to 2013, Dr. Rowley paid it out. Now, with the advent to office of Mr. Manning in 1991, he said he'd given back 10% one time, and he did that within a year. Dr. Rowley did the same thing on advent to office. He said he's going to borrow $5 billion to pay off half the salary that the UNC left. Now, if we're talking about corruption, it's not something you argue on the read it, Tosca, corruption for corruption. But if after 30 years, the PNM was voted out in 1986, you're going to tell me we still got a judgment of $100 million in a court during Mr. Pandey's time? And that is where we need reform to stop coming on the rear and tell me it had corruption then. Reform would change that. But I also want to tell you, from 1991, not one PNM minister have been arrested for corruption. So let us not shift. My thing is, let's go back to the union. The union have been displaced. They haven't saved enough. They compromise the effort. And now, when you know that, hey, before our government tell you I could only give 4%, you would think that's not prudent. But that's the real what offer in relation to the economics. When you a platform say I'll give percent, ignoring the economic factor, the consequence is what you're seeing today. And that is what's happening in the whole life of the union, where it's a facade that I'm quarreling with the directors of a company who were posted by the minister. It's the first time I'm seeing in my state, Tusker, a minister coming to address workers in relation to salary increase. That too happened. And going forward, to me, just so you have an SRC to decide on minister
salaries, etc.
Yes. Let me modernize it and put a review committee studying the economics of company and everything, so we could have better negotiation for workers, and we will have somebody coming into office, find the poorest people, and the union staying quiet. They have been displaced, they have been compromised, and that's the trouble we're seeing today in our union. It's sad. All the best.
Thank you so much, Rowley Jr. I'm sorry that I have to cut you at this point because there are a few points that I wanted to get into conversation with. However, I have Mr. Idris Hussain on the line as we step into Mind Matters here on Freedom 106.5 FM. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
I know that it was a very engaging conversation starting out there. Today's topic, can you fill me in on today's topic?
Yes. So today's topic, I want to discuss high functioning, but not okay. When we look fine on the outside, but are struggling inside. And what I want to discuss is basically how adults can continue just being normal by working and being a parent and socializing, appearing successful on the outside, but experiencing significant anxiety, things like burnout and depression and emotional exhaustion due to unresolved trauma or other issues in their life, but still function on the outside as if they're normal.
All right, so high functioning, and then I guess like high functioning anxiety, high functioning. Is that how the term goes? What exactly do you mean when you say someone is high functioning but not okay?
Right. Yeah. So exactly that, high functioning. I think this is an important topic because where I work in the public sector, we see a lot of people that they come in and it's due to these things being not checked in with or not being resolved when it needed to be resolved. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has a formal mental health diagnosis at this stage, what we're talking about here, right? It means that someone is maintaining their responsibilities, but struggling psychologically underneath it all. So they go to work as normal, right? They take care of their children if they have children. They socialize and even look happy on the outside, right? They may even perform well in the professional environment, right? They could even be a person that someone depends on or even somebody speaks to about their personal problems as well. But yet in private, they could experience things like constant worrying and irritability and anger and, insomnia, poor sleeping patterns, might be going on in the nights, emotional exhaustion is what we're talking about here, right? They might even lose the enjoyment in things and feeling numb emotionally. All this can be going on and still they may look functioning on the outside completely okay.
Why are so many adults reluctant to admit that they're struggling mentally?
Yeah, so a lot of adults, especially in Trinidad, right? In Trinidad, we are raised, and I think I brought this point up when I was on last time. We are raised to say, we hear things like toughen up, Mental health is very stigmatized in Trinidad, of course, as we know. So, you hear things like everybody have problems, that's nothing. You need to suck it up, You have to, or even if they have a family and they're a provider, even worse because they think that you have to provide for your family. So forget your mental health problems. Forget that you have things going on the inside internally. You need to stop complaining and just be a father or be a mother, and then they would be perceived, they've been afraid of being perceived as weak or being too dramatic or incapable or even unstable mentally because, there's that label as well too. right? And the thing is, adults have responsibilities that don't simply stop because they're struggling, and that's what makes it so difficult, right?
Can you say that the way in which Trinis deal with trauma, and Trinbagonians deal with trauma in a comedic way or a deflective way has a lot to do with how, as you say, these very important topics. Does that have an impact on how people do address their high functioning scenarios?
Yes, of course. So of course, humor is a defense mechanism. So of course, when you trivialize it by making a joke out of it, it is a form of avoidance and deflection, and that is something that happens a lot, And then in men in particular, they tend to have this tough, mask that they put on where they have to be this strong person, but being strong, and I think I discussed this last time as well, being strong doesn't mean hiding and keeping your problems inside. It means actually having the strength to realize that you need to seek help.
How about projection, meaning that you may have misinterpreted a scenario because you think that the person being reclusive or by themselves, it may seem like they are quote unquote depressed, but they're just normal. Does that, affect the way in which persons who may need the attention and the assistance want to not seek it?
So when you say projection, I think what you're referring to are people who probably imitate the symptoms, I guess, of
no,
being
not
depressed.
imitate, but misconstrue that a person has those symptoms and, approach a person incorrectly.
Right. Yes. So of course, so a lot of us, we are egocentric. So people are generally egocentric. So we tend to think from an me point of view. When we grow up from a child, we think of ourselves as me, and then that egocentrism goes to the outside, and then you start to think of others, and you start to think about, well, mommy and daddy, I need to care for them the way they care about me. And then afterwards, I need to care for people the way they care about, the way that people care about me. And so the thing is, when we look at someone with mental health problems or someone that is going through something, so a lot of times the symptoms, the irritability, the anger, the way that they interact with you, you tend to project, as you correctly said, that you tend to think that it's me, I am the problem. But when you dig deeper and you realize a lot of times afterwards, and people will realize this in their life, a lot of times afterwards they come out and say, sorry, I was going through something, sorry I wasn't there, sorry I was being a bad friend, but this was happening in my life and I couldn't tell you at the time. And you see, those things is when as people will realize over time, that you need to sometimes stop and think, is it a me problem? Have I done something wrong legitimately? Or is it maybe possibly they're going through something and I just need to either be a good friend and be there for them, or be a good friend and just tell them, when you're ready, I am here.
How can someone tell the difference between normal stress and a mental health problem? I think that's basically what I was asking. If someone looking on the outside and looking in on the situation may misjudge what they're seeing. So how do you tell the difference between normal stress and a mental health problem?
Yeah, so the thing about stress is that stress isn't necessarily pathological. It's a normal response to difficult circumstances, but you become more concerned when it is persistent, right? And it's the intensity of it, and it interferes with their daily functioning, and it's disproportionate to this situation as well. For example, catastrophizing is one of the cognitive distortions that I use often in therapy. When you see someone catastrophizing things, the smallest inconvenience, they feel like it's the worst, the end of the world. That could be a symptom of you maybe suffering from depression, or as we're talking about here, high functioning depression. Right? And of course, there are changes we look at as well. We look at changes in sleep, sudden changes in sleep, sudden changes in appetite, eating too much, eating too little, inability to concentrate, lack of motivation, difficulties in relationships, performance in work, performance in school. And this is a big one, their emotional regulation, or the ability to regulate their emotions. Because when you see someone is dysregulated, that may be a sign that something is coming on. They may have a heightened form of anxiety or a heightened form of distress in some way, or sadness and depression coming on, right? For example, I'll just give you an example. Being stressed because you have a major deadline is understandable. But if months later, you're still unable to relax, and you're constantly anticipating something terrible, and you're not sleeping well, you're becoming more and more irritable and with everybody around you in your life, right? That's something that it's worth addressing. So the main question I would say is, you ask yourself, is this the way I'm feeling, and is that beginning to interfere with the way that I live?
And is it just for today, or is it always like every day? What happens when people keep suppressing their emotions instead of dealing with them?
Right. So the thing is, emotions, if you suppress your emotions, you are basically keeping it inside rather than dealing with it. And this suppression could sometimes help us deal with immediate crisis, because sometimes you need to compartmentalize, but it's not necessarily a long-term solution. And what we call unprocessed emotions can show up indirectly. Again, you're looking at irritability, anxiety, emotional numbness, anger, relationship issues, avoidance in general, avoiding everything. Because when you avoid that one issue, you start to avoid everything in your life because you're not able to cope, right? You might start to overwork because, sometimes overworking is a form of escape. So you escape into like your work, which may take away from other things in life. And this is the biggest one, of course, as we know, excessive alcohol and substance use. That is an alcohol culture we have in Trinidad. We go to the bar and we sit down and we think that when we drink, it will solve the problems. But what it does is it just numbs the problems temporarily.
What are some practical things adults can do if they recognize themselves in this conversation?
So if this is something that you guys could relate on that's listening, the first thing to do is acknowledge what's happening. Acknowledge that something is going on. Stop minimizing everything. And it's just some stress, And this is something I hear so often. And when you do that and it's just stressful or whatever, you have to realize to yourself if this is something that's so intense that you may not be able to deal with it by yourself. Before it reaches the point where you get a mental health diagnosis, for example. So the second thing to do is just look at the same thing, right? The way you sleep, and see if there's things, acknowledge to yourself, am I sleeping the same, right? Am I exercising, moving, being active the same? Is my diet the same, right? If you're having excessive caffeine use, right? Or excessive alcohol use, as we spoke about, right? If your social network, your social connections, you realize that people are kind of, you're distancing yourself from people, or people find it difficult to connect with you anymore. You have to realize if that might be a me problem, right? If you're taking a lot of time off from work as well, and you realize that you have that avoidance from work. And the third thing to do is identifying what it is you're carrying by asking yourself, what have I been dealing with really that I haven't really been able to process and deal with? And then the fourth thing is to just talk to somebody about it. It doesn't have to be a mental health professional. You can talk to a trusted friend, a family member. We all have that grandmother, auntie, or somebody that everybody trusts to come and just talk without judgment, right? And then if that doesn't work and you don't have anyone, then there are mental health professionals in the hospital settings where you can go to, right? Or there's the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists website where you can seek a psychologist if you can get afford the therapy there. And then the last and final thing is that don't wait until you're in a crisis. So when it's the point where you're in a crisis is usually the point where you would see them. I would see them, for example, in the hospital setting, right? So don't wait until that reaches that point. The psychological intervention can be preventative, right? It's not just crisis based, but you have to acknowledge when that comes up. And this is something so difficult. Treat mental health issues like you treat a physical problem, right? Because you don't need to reach a point where you're suicidal or have a psychiatric diagnosis, as I said, general anxiety disorder or major depressive disorder. You don't need to be completely falling apart, right? In order to seek psychological support or seek help, or even just open up and talk to somebody about it.
I guess for those who, as you say, are searching for those options, are there any, well, you talked about the public health care and so on. Do you have any numbers or pages that persons can log on to, or numbers to call?
Yeah, so there's the Lifeline, right? I think it's the Lifeline website, or there's the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists website, which is psychologytt.org, psychologytt.org, and you can see the list of mental health professionals and psychologists there, and you can see which one suits you best, whether it's a male or female or what they specialize in.
All right. Mr. Hossain, thank you so much for joining us today inside Mind Matters, and it will be next week again.
No problem at all. Glad to be
All
here.
right. Take care. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with the conversation. The role of unions, do you think that they should adhere to the call as they've been asking for, a removal of political interests and, take care of the workers instead? What say you? We'll be right back.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hi. I need to get your number. I'm on the executive as well. I need to get your number as well, if that's fine. My number is 774-7465. Yeah? Because Shani, the PR, she sent it a bit late, and I would like to get your number as well. Yeah?
Tune in to Betterments with Space Monday through Thursday, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. for a program that educates and is solution-based. Space tackles the issues that matter to you, providing a platform to speak your mind and find solutions. That's Betterments with Space, with a focus on education and resolution. This is all about making things better for you. You can reach us via phone and WhatsApp to share your thoughts and find solutions to the issues that matter to you. So if you want to make a difference and have your voice heard, tune into Freedom 106.5 FM and join us for Betterments with Space, Monday through Thursday from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Better for you. Only on Freedom 106.5 FM, where we believe that your voice matters. When the issues matter, the conversation starts here. From politics to the economy, from social justice to national development, nothing is off the table. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Davy Marie brings you the Morning Rumble on Freedom 106.5 FM.